Page 37 of section 8-3 talks about 30, 60, 90-degree triangles. In our example here, we see that the shorter leg is equal to x, the hypotenuse is equal to 2x, and in this area here, this leg, it's going to be equal to x times the square root of 3. So it's going to be the square root of 3 times x here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump down to our exercises. On question 1, we're trying to find x and y, okay, in this situation. We know what the shorter leg is. It's half. So if we take, in order to find x, we know from the example up here that our hypotenuse is 2 times x. So if we take half, it should be equal to half of x, okay? In order to get x by itself, we're going to multiply times 2 over 1, okay? Those cancel. That leaves you with x is equal to 2 over 2, or 1, okay? So x is equal to 1. What do we know about this area in here? Well, we know that it is equal to x square roots of 3. So if we take our x, which is half, in this case I'm going to use a decimal, 0.5, okay, and take it times the square root of 3, that should give us what y equals, okay? So we'll type that into our calculator, 5 times the square root of 3. That gives us approximately 0.9 if we round up. Since that's a 6 there, that'll automatically round this number up to 0.9. Okay, number 2. Again, we know what the shorter leg is. We're looking for x now, and x is the other leg, so we know that x is going to be equal to 8 square roots of 3. Okay, we'll type that into our calculator. That gives you approximately 13.9. And then we'll find y. Y is equal to 8 and half of y. In order to get y by itself, we multiply times 2 over 1. And that gives you y equals 8 times 2, gives you 16 over 1, or just 16 there. Number 3. Now we don't have the short leg. All we have is the hypotenuse here. The hypotenuse is equal to 2x here. So we can actually find that by setting x equal to half of 11, because x is going to be half of this measurement here. Okay, so x is equal to 5.5, and you can see that by 11 times 1/2 gives me 5.5. Since we know what the short leg is, we can take the y and set it equal to 5.5 square roots of 3. Type that into our calculator, and that gives us approximately 9.5. Number 4. We can take this number, since this is what we use to get the x, so x is automatically equal to 9. Okay, since we know what x is, we can then find y. Y is equal to half of y is equal to 9, so we'll multiply times 2 over 1, and y is equal to 9 times 2, which is 18 over 1, or just simply 18. Number 5. We know this leg, 12, and we know that x square roots of 3 is equal to 12. In order to get x by itself, we divide by the square root of 3, and that gives us approximately 6.9. Okay. Since we know what x is, we can now take our 6.9, set it equal to half of y, get rid of my half. That gives me y is equal to 6.9 times 2, approximately 13.8. And I'm doing an approximate measure here because I did round here. So if you would have actually put in the entire decimal here, this would have actually been a bigger number. So I'm just approximating there on the 13.8. Number 6, we know the hypotenuse. We know that 2y, so 2 of these is equal to 1 of these. Okay. So in order to get y by itself, we have y is equal to 10. Since we know y, we can now take that to find x and multiply it times the square root of 3. 10 square roots of 3, that's approximately 17.3. Number 7, an equilateral triangle has an altitude length of 36 feet. Determine the length of a side of the triangle. Now, don't let this confuse you. Equilateral means all sides are the same. Altitude comes straight down the middle there. It's saying that the altitude is 36 feet. How do we know what the length of the side of each of this triangle is? So how do I know the length of this side, this side, this side? And of course, they're all going to be the same since it's an equilateral triangle. So in order to find that, we know that this part is going to be x based on what we've learned so far, and the hypotenuse here is going to be 2x. Okay. So we know that this side is equal to x square roots of 3, and we know it is 36. So we divide by the square root of 3 in order to find x. 36 divided by the square root of 3. That gives you approximately 20.8. I'm going to keep the decimal for just a little bit of reference here. So x is approximately 20.7846, and you'll see why I'm doing this a little bit different here in just a second. Now we can take and find, since we know what x is, we can multiply times 2 to get this side here, which will give us our answer. So 2 times 20.7846. And I'm actually just going to take this number here and multiply it times 2. That gives us approximately 41.6 feet. Number 8 says find the length of the side of an equilateral triangle that has an altitude length of 45 centimeters. Again, it's the same thing that we just did. All sides are congruent. The altitude is 45. So we take x square roots of 3 and set it equal to 45. Divide by the square root of 3 to find x. So that gives us x. but we want to find the side, so we take that and multiply it times 2 to give us approximately 52. Since this is a 9, we'll go ahead and round up 52 centimeters.